in order to express the subtle emotions. The plasma beam is now circling around her.
And per pixel shadowing. With shaders, they're more than 200 times more complex than was possible in the previous generation.
And thank you. Thank you, Ken. I'm delighted to be here. And I'm delighted to join you to announce clearly the most important digital consumer device to be built this decade, and one that you've so passionately worked on over the last 5 years. You know, our two teams share a passion for computer graphics. Nvidia is home to a very large number of the world's most talented graphics design engineers. Over the course of the last 12 years, we've dedicated well over $1 billion in R&D to advance this technology, created over 1,000 patented technologies, including one of the most important contributions we've made to the computer industry, the programmable shading processor. Today, you can find NVIDIA's GPUs standard in the highest performance computers and the most graphics demanding workstations around the world. So you could imagine how excited we were when Ken invited us to partner with him to build the PlayStation 3 GPU. Ken had 3 very lofty goals. First, to build absolutely the most advanced GPU the world has ever seen. Second, to truly make it possible to synthesize movie-quality graphics in real time. And third, to understand and completely utilize the awesome processing power and throughput of the cell processor. Now, these are daunting goals. The fundamental challenge of graphics, of computer graphics, is that tension between beauty and speed. The x-axis represents the speed of graphics rendering. The y-axis represents the beauty, or the image reality, of the rendered image. Movies are clearly beautiful and fantastic to look at, but they take hours and hours to render on farms of CPUs. Game consoles, on the other hand, are lightning fast, 60 frames per second, knee-jerk reaction, but clearly doesn't come anywhere close to the image quality that you see in movies. Computer graphics technology used for movies is called shaders, programs that run on farms and farms of servers. It takes hours and hours to render each pixel and each frame. The technology of computer consoles, game consoles, is called texture mapping. Fast, but limited. Our goal with the PlayStation 3 graphics is to overcome this fundamental barrier and bring movie-quality images to game consoles at 60 frames per second. Our solution is the RSX, Reality Synthesizer. There are so many new technologies that are introduced in the RSX, and it will take years to describe. It is the culmination of over 1,500 man-years of engineering. There are 4, however, that are extremely important in the next generation of game consoles. First, the heart and soul of the RSX, the programmable shading processors. The RSX can process 136 shader operations simultaneously in one clock. Second, 128 bits floating point pixel precision. This is something that's just truly spectacular. Today's game consoles are limited to 32 bits of pixel precision, which means that we can only express 250 shades of lights for each color. And I will illustrate to you later that that's simply limiting and will not achieve the level of quality we want to see in movie-like images. The third, 2K by 1K resolution. Resolution is the enemy of graphics. The higher the resolution, the more pixel processing capability you need, and the more system memory and graphics rendering memory you need. 2K by 1K, 2 million pixels. The highest resolution of HD supported on this game console. And lastly, most importantly, is the overall system architecture to achieve this incredible throughput. Now let me put this all into perspective. The RSX is based on our next generation graphics architecture that has never been seen before and that we will preview for the first time to the world today. There are 300 million transistors on one chip, 500 million vias. These are little tiny 1-micron electronic devices that connect each layer of metal. And if you connect it back to back, all of the interconnect on this chip, it will reach half a mile. 300 million transistors, 8 layers of metal, built on Sony's 90 nanometer process. Now, another way to think about this is how much performance is there. The RSX has twice the performance of the GeForce 6800 Ultras, the highest performance GPU in the world today. Each one of these GPUs retail for $500. There will be 2 of them, equivalent horsepower, in the RSX. Now, what is 300 million transistors? Transistors are a bit of an obscure little electronic devices. 300 million transistors is equivalent to, essentially, the Xbox GPU, the PS2 graphics synthesizer, the GameCube flipper chip, the Gecko microprocessor, the Xbox Pentium 3 CPU, the PlayStation 2 Emotion Engine, and you kick in the highest performance PC CPU in the world today. All of that combined is 300 million transistors. Now the question is, what do you do with 300 million transistors, and why is it that the RSX requires so many? Well, fundamentally, the fixed function texture mapping capabilities are too limiting, and programmable shading processors requires an extraordinary amount of computational horsepower. Instead of just a pre-computed decal that is layered on top of a 3D object, in those kind of a texture mapping architecture, it is not possible for us to articulate the subtle material surfaces that are only visible pixel at a time as you interact with the environment, the lighting and the shadows of the environment around you. It's simply impossible to articulate brushed aluminum, carbon fiber, felt, carpeting, wool, silk, and even be able to show the difference between gold paint and gold. We want to achieve that level of realism. In order to do that, we incorporated a farm of programmable shading processors so that each and every single pixel will be computed in real time. In addition to texture maps, we will now provide also light maps, shadow maps, bump maps, normal maps, and even some really exciting new things like surface reflectance functions, surface and subsurface scatter functions, to be able to articulate the really subtle effects that you see in real life. Let me show you now and demonstrate for the first time our next generation GPU and give you a sense of what pixel shaders can do. This is Luna. She is a computer-generated person. And notice all of the subtleties, the specular shine on her lips, the soft shadows under her nose and above her lips. Notice that the specular highlight on her cheeks shows the imperfections of her skin. Notice that light is penetrating her skin and scattering underneath her skin so that you see her rosy cheeks. The volumetric shadows on her hair. Her hair looks so incredibly soft. All of these effects are made possible with programmable shaders. However, we want to do a lot more than that. What the PlayStation 3 is about is creating beautiful worlds that come alive. In addition, the programmable shaders are articulating her skin, the skeletal structure, and her muscles underneath in order to express the subtle emotions. The plasma beam is now circling around her, and her bodysuit is now coming to life, reflecting, refracting, and absorbing light in different ways. These lovable creatures are also rendered with shaders. Notice the plasma, so bright in the back that it actually penetrates the membranes of their skin, and rendering for the first time effects that have never been seen before, volumetric rendering of objects. You could see the skeleton in the back through the objects. The lights are so bright that they're flooding over the silhouette of the characters. This is a simple technology demonstration of what is the possibility of the PlayStation 3. Thank you. Luna is beautiful enough to fall in love with. Now, the second most important, in addition to the ability to be able to articulate the surface material, we also need to have a color format and color precision that can express the incredible subtleties that we're going to be able to render. Today's computer systems are limited to 32 bits. I want to show you some imagery that is courtesy of Paul Debevec at University of Southern California and one of the leading experts in a technology called high dynamic range. 32 bits can only articulate 250 tones of light, and yet our eyes, and certainly my eyes right now, I can see 50,000 to 1 contrast. So in the brightest of lights and the darkest of shadows, our eyes still have the ability to see deep and subtle details. In order to be able to articulate this level of realism, we need to take our color format to floating point. With the RSX, we're introducing 128 bits with floating point precision for each and every single pixel. Let me show you the effect of that. On the upper side is the original image, both of which currently look the same. On the top, we're going to show you 32 bits accuracy, and on the bottom, we're going to show you 128 bits of high dynamic range pixel precision. As we make the lights brighter, notice that the top is starting to wash out, and it's simply because it doesn't have enough precision to deal with the brightness of light. The details through the window are already essentially lost. If we make it even brighter, notice that it's completely washed out. The benefit of 128 bits of pixel precision is clear. However, the amount of electronics and the amount of horsepower necessary to do so and deliver that capability in real time is staggering. RSX will bring that to the game console world. Resolution. This is the digital era. Digital displays are getting higher and higher in resolution. PlayStation 1 was introduced during the time of NTSC and TVs, 320 by 240 resolution. The PlayStation 2 was the first entry into digital displays and has a resolution of 720 by 486. The PlayStation 3 is going to bring 2 megapixels to real time. Now, 2 megapixels, that is the resolution of movies. It is the resolution you're currently seeing broadcasted to you right now. Having this level of resolution on your TV screen at home is going to be absolutely spectacular. When you combine that with Blu-ray and digital panels that are going to be coming out in the future, the living room will never be the same. And lastly, and most importantly, is the overall system performance. Putting it together, the first thing you notice is the bandwidth of the bus between the cell processor and the RSX, 35 gigabytes per second. That's 7 DVDs in 1 second. 7 DVDs will be transferred across that bus in 1 second. It is 7 times the bandwidth of the highest performance PC today. The second is 100 billion shader operations per second. The ability to process shaders is going to be the critical measure of performance and beauty in the coming generation of game consoles. 100 billion is 3 times that of the highest PC today. 51 billion dot products per second. A dot product is the fundamental and one of the most important calculations in 3D graphics. The highest performance Pentium 4 can perform 3 billion dot products per second. 51 versus 3, 2 teraflops. Over 120 times the performance of a Pentium 4. And of course, 512 megabytes of graphics render memory. One of the most interesting and most exciting architectural advantages that we're bringing to this generation is that the RSX can render pixels to anywhere in system memory. So instead of being limited to just the 4 megabytes of the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3 will have 512 megabytes available to it for graphics memory. So how do you put all this stuff together? Well, we're going to show you the first demonstration, real-time demonstration of a next-generation game console and a next-generation game. To help me do that is Tim Sweeney, founder and chief technical officer of Epic Games, and Josh, his capable sidekick. Tim?
Thank you very much, Jensen.
Josh, thank you.
Now here we're showing Unreal Engine 3 up and running in real time on the PlayStation 3 hardware right now.
We're not going to say anything so you guys can enjoy this demonstration. Wow, there is no way that is real time. Tim, there is just absolutely no way that's real time. You're going to have to prove it to the audience.
Okay, now we'll run through the same demo and take over controls so Josh can actually navigate through the environment and see what we have here. A 720p high definition screen being rendered with per pixel lighting and per pixel shadowing. With shaders, that are more than 200 times more complex than was possible in the previous generation. So here we see a floating point render target with very high dynamic range lighting everywhere. Per pixel lighting and shadowing and all of the effects that you've seen in previous generation movies are now being done in real-time games now today with this generation.
And the high dynamic range is what makes it possible for us to see the incredibly bright highlights while still seeing the details of the shadows.
Oh, exactly. It's the real difference between what's been seen in video games before, where you had 8-bit graphics, versus what you see in film, which is very, very high definition.
Now tell us, Tim, how long has it taken you guys to develop this game on top of the PS3 dev kit?
Well, amazingly, we got the first PlayStation 3 hardware only 2 months ago. So what you see here is just 2 months of work bringing Unreal Engine 3 up and running. And this was so fast because we have a lot of experience with PC development, and all of that knowledge was immediately applicable to PlayStation 3, which has a very nice development pipeline, OpenGL-based, CG shading language-based, and all standard-based, and very easy to write for.
Mm-hmm. That's terrific. This is really awesome stuff. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Tim.
Jensen.
Well, there you have it. That's the RSX. What you're seeing today is really just the tip of the iceberg of what's going to be possible in this truly revolutionary game console, PlayStation 3. It has just been an incredible privilege for us to work with Ken and his team on building clearly the most important digital consumer platform of this decade. I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.